Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so excited to welcome our guest today. Her name is Amy Ambrozich, and she is somebody who's supporting couples and blending family relationships, confidently creating the family you always envisioned. Blending a family takes more than love. It takes a plan, shared parenting, and communication that actually works. Many couples wonder, why isn't this working? Love brought you together, but love alone won't help you navigate parenting differences, step-parent tensions, or the emotional highs and lows of blending a family. That's where strategy matters. And that's what Amy does. She helps couples create plans together. Love is the starting point, not the strategy. With that, let's welcome Amy.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Okay. So tell us a little bit. I know we're going to be talking about how to blend families, and I'm so excited that you're here to talk to us about this because this can be such a challenging thing, but you're here to help us make that a little bit easier. But will you tell us a little bit about what kind of practice or work you do?
Sure, happy to do that. So I work with beginning to blend couples, helping them prepare for and navigate through the challenges of blended family life and parenting, of course. And I work with couples who are in that beginning to blend stage, or those within like the first maybe 1 to 5 years of marriage where they're still trying to figure things out. I have found that it helps couples later on when they lay a good, strong foundation to begin with. Then they're not in the hot mess later on.
Yes. I mean, I think we're all going to be in a hot mess. I mean,
Oh,
in
always.
general, in life, like life throws things at us. But yes, this makes it so much easier when you have a good foundation or framework to work from because every family is different, right?
Yeah.
And like how we were raised is different as like the person maybe entering a relationship, how we've been parenting with a previous partner, how, right? Like there's just so many factors.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So let's jump into this. So, what do you think are some of the most common conflicts that happen with couples when they're starting to blend that arise around maybe like the parenting decisions? And like, why do you think that those things happen?
Yeah. So, of course, the most obvious one is discipline. Who's going to discipline the kids?
Yeah.
How are we going to discipline the kids? We have to remember that we all come from different parenting styles, even those of us that are in nuclear families. I mean, my husband and I have been married 35 years, but we had to figure out how to parent together because
Yeah.
each of our parents raised us differently. So, imagine that plus most of my couples, one, if not both of them, were used to parenting with a partner, then by themselves. They established routines. Now they're having to establish new routines with another partner. So that discipline is a huge issue for them typically. Routines are hard sometimes because now you're squeezing a lot of people into what used to be just our routine or their routine. Now it's a combined hour routine, and we need to figure this out. Kids coming and going. That's a hard one too when I talk about routines because we have some kids who are shared custody. So I'm here for 2 days, I'm there for 3 days, I'm back in for 2 more days every other weekend. So as much as we want to start a routine, it's hard because we have kids coming and going like Grand Central Station sometimes. So the routines can be another, kind of a tripping point that we need to figure out. And then I would say, I just started writing about this, the holidays, birthdays, things like that, those traditions that we held close to our family. Well, wait, his family or her family does things differently. So how do we mesh those things together? And it's even something as simple as like, how do we do a birthday? Some families do it one way, some do it another, and we've got to figure all of that out. So there's a lot of things along the way, stepping stones along the way that we have to kind of blend, mesh, negotiate, navigate through all of those different stages.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that maybe the theme is change is hard.
Oh, change is so hard.
Yeah. Right. So like, I
Yes.
think, even like you said, nuclear families, I mean, change is hard for everyone. It doesn't matter what it is, but I think, especially when you feel like there's a lot of different changes. And I think when we're blending families, it's kind of like it could be if we were doing it without support or putting a lot of thought into it, we're just like, okay, these two people are in love now and they both have kids and now we're going to get married and, we're going to live here. And it's like, oh my gosh, that could be so much
Yes.
change, so much change, right? Like just like so many people and so many schedules and just
Well,
the logistics.
the other part of that too is we have to remember, as you said, the adults made all these decisions and the kids are just kind of pulled along in the flow of the river, but sometimes they start pushing back too. And how are we going to navigate all of that? There's a lot of change for everybody. We tend to forget how much the kids are going through. Having their birth family broken up, then I'm by myself with mom and by myself with dad. Now we've got this other person who's my step parent and these step siblings of mine that I don't even know these kids and I have to live with them now. So so many changes happening.
Yes. And that part too, like thinking about like, it's kind of like you went to college and got a roommate by like a potluck, right? Like, I mean, it's like the sibling, because like you didn't get to choose it, right? And even having your own siblings, like who are biologically the same is not easy, but then adding in other people who have had different values or rituals or routines, right? Like those things can make that hard too. And so then it's like, everybody needs to get along. It's like, well, it's definitely not that easy. Right. So this is a big responsibility for parents to help their kids, all the kids through this process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So something that I was thinking about, you were talking about discipline. And when you think about like as a new step parent or, somebody who is co-parenting with this other person, whether you're married or like you're living together, right? Like you are blending these families together. And oftentimes step parents will say like, I feel like kind of an outsider to the situation of like, like Johnny did this thing, but I feel like I can't do anything about it, or I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And so like they want to be authentic, but they kind of feel like they are either not respected or they don't want to be too fierce or they're afraid they're stepping on the other parent's toes, all these things. Okay. So I know I'm just like thinking about like, that would be so hard, right? To walk into that situation. So what advice do you have for those people that are now parenting new kids besides their own kids, or maybe they were parenting kids for the first time?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit different depending on if you've never had a child before to step in and be a step parent with no, parenting experience.
Sure.
Sometimes the birth parent may see that as a deficit in you and, hold it against you like, well, you don't know what this is like, blah, 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 and not let them in. And there's a whole process I go through with my clients, about that transition of authority and how to do that well, whether you're with kids or without kids coming into that step parent role. It's so important that the couple sits down together and thinks about like roles and responsibilities. Who's going to be in charge of what? In step parents, it's really important. I was just having this conversation with a stepmom not too long ago, and she's like, so we're married now and we've moved in together, and he just assumed I would do things like pack lunches the night before. All the mom things, he assumed she would just pick those up. The other assumption that was made was now she's another adult that can, like, if the kids get sick at school, she can be on call. She's like, I have a job from 9 to 5. I can't just jump out of my job to run to the school. Not that I don't want to, I just don't have the flexibility to do that. So really, it's important for the couple to sit down, as soon as possible and start having those discussions of, what is my role with your kids? What is your role with my kids? How are we going to do this? And I know some of the other questions we'll talk about later, we'll kind of dip into that a little bit more. Doing what feels right. Some parents, they're comfortable with the parenting thing and they just kind of slide right into that whole thing of, okay, I know how to do this. If you have never had kids before, how do I bathe the kid? How do we do a bedtime routine? They don't, it's not a lack of wanting to, it's lack of, I just don't know how to do this. I've not done this before. Those of us that are birth parents, we start at day one and kind of figure it out along the way. Yes. So we're throwing step parents in it, chapter 7, 8 in the book of your child's life. And they're like, what do I do with this kid? I don't know what to do with these children. So, And it takes time. I often recommend, trying to get that one-to-one time with your stepkids. And
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be major things. It could be just little conversations through the day. Welcome them in when they come in the door. Hey, how was your day? Blah, blah, blah. Just finding those little moments that you can get in and just start building baby connections with them, little baby bridges along the way. My other thing is, and discipline, we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but discipline needs to be handled very carefully. And the phrase I always go back to with my step parents in my step couples, I always tell them, you need to connect before you correct. It's so
Mm.
important that you connect with these kids, because otherwise you're just another adult yelling at them. And that is not, that's just
Mhm.
gonna, it's like sticking a match to a stick of dynamite. You're just waiting for it to go kaboom. So, make that connection first. Be available. Be a supportive adult. You don't have to necessarily even take on the parent role right away. Just be that supportive person in their life and say, hey,
Mhm.
how was your day? What's going on? Oh, that sounds really hard. Let's talk about that. And just
Mhm.
kind of ease your way into it.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking, like, that makes so much sense because oftentimes we get way more, like, as parents, we might come in and be like, we already know what the problem is. You
Yeah.
were in the wrong, like, whatever. And so we might be correcting them, even though we may have a relationship with them. In that moment, we'd be like, stop bothering your brother, stop bothering your sister, like, give that back, whatever. We're not even listening ourselves, right? Because
Mhm.
we've been through this, which, we shouldn't do, but we may be like a victim to that routine. And if you get this new kind of special role of like, I can play like the middle, like
Mhm.
I'm balanced, right? Like where I'm not picking a side, I'm just listening, right? And so that could actually be super valuable in gaining
Mhm.
information and helping the like overall parenting process to be somebody who is like gonna be like, "Oh, what do you think about that?" Like, "So like, I heard this happen today, like, tell me
Yeah.
about that." And right? So, like, I think that's probably a good way to parent just in general, but, like, you
Yeah.
kinda get this, like, super secret in, right? I don't know, like, it could be such a good place to be of just, like, connecting, hearing what they like and don't like, and how things went or what's been hard or easy, what they're looking forward to, like, to just, like, know them.
Yes. Yeah. The other side of unfortunately, the flip side of that is if you've got a stepkid who's just shoving you away all the time too. And then you're
Mhm.
like, well, what is my role? You mentioned the outsider thing. It's hard to come into someone else's realm, someone else's home, and feel like you're a part of the thing. You're like you're this new shiny thing that's been added to, the house. And you're like, well, I don't even know. Like the kids don't want me here. They're mad at me because I exist. And how do I build those bridges with people that don't want me here to begin with? And
Yes.
that takes a lot of work. It really does. I credit
Mhm.
step parents for taking on this role because it is hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think the key is what I think that, and we can talk more. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but like I think it's a loyalty conflict too, and also like not wanting change, right? Like I mean, I know that change is like the only thing that I can count on in life.
Yes.
Like literally, like I know for sure that in that at some point I will die, right? Like those are things, right? Like that I'm not going to live forever and there is going to be
Mhm.
challenges. And so I think in change, right, with that. And so but we're also teaching kids how to do that. And so like they'll
Mhm.
push us away. I mean, like even your own parents, like you get like who are biologically your parents or your adoptive parents or whatever it is, like that you're the person raising those kids. I mean, sometimes parents get pushed away
Oh gosh,
too.
yes. Yeah.
And so that part of that is like maybe not taking it personally. Like
Mhm.
how do you suggest that sub parents especially navigate that loyalty part? I mean, that's not always what it is. Sometimes it's developmentally. It's
Mhm.
just that like they're a teenager and they're like, I've done most of my life without you. Like I don't necessarily need you here. I'm busy doing these other things. And so
Yeah.
it's not necessarily personal, but sometimes they're like, I want you to know how mad I am that you're here.
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah.
Right? Like I'm going to demonstrate.
Yes, you're gonna find out for sure.
Mhm.
And one of the things that I think we tend to forget as adults is that for kids, when their birth parent repartners, remarries, That's like the final nail in the coffin of any opportunity for mom and dad to get back together again. Even if that birth family was high conflict craziness, that's what they knew. And even if your home is now calm and loving and all of that, they came from this. This was my mom and dad, and now you're here, which means they can't get back together again. So that's part of that loyalty thing. The other thing is, and little kids have a hard time with this, like, well, if I love you, it hurts mom's feelings or hurts dad's feelings. So I can't like you because otherwise I'm going to be hurting my parent. And it is perfectly okay for you to say to them, I get it. This is hard. This has got to be kind of confusing too. I love you. I'm excited to be a part of your family. I am not trying to replace your mom or your dad. That's super important. Ask them about how their time was with mom and dad when they come back to your home. And don't make a big deal of it, but just like, hey, how was your time at mom's, or how was the weekend with dad? Some may want to talk about it. Others may not want to talk about it with you, but at least having that opening where, again, you're going back to that supportive adult in my realm, that kind of helps to never speak poorly of the other birth parent that's out of the home. That is the worst thing you can do, because then the child's going to dig in even harder. Like, how dare you? And even if you and your partner are talking about that, your partner's ex, don't do it when the kids are around, because they're going to overhear something.
Or they could hear you. Yes. Like they must be asleep and you're like outside or something, or in the car. Right?
Yeah, that's definitely, but just acknowledging for kids, like, this has got to be hard. And I can understand why, it's easy to push me away because, you're afraid that I'm trying to take over mom's role, or, and it might be the other birth parent from the other home bad mouthing you.
Yes.
And when the kids repeat that to you, then you can just lean on the truth, and say, it's interesting that she says that, but when you're here, this is how things are in the house. So don't badmouth the other parent. Just go back to the reality of, this is our situation here at home. And I can see where maybe that's hard or that's confusing to hear, and just move on. Don't berate the other parent. They may be coming from hurt or fear of being replaced, or, there's a lot of outside feelings oozing their way into your home, unfortunately, with that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and something I think is helpful is talking to kids about, like, how there's no such thing as too much love.
Oh gosh, yes.
Right? Like, it doesn't exist. Like, you cannot be loved by too many people too much. I mean, right? I mean, I just haven't ever heard of that. No kid has ever died because they were loved too much, right? Like, smothered. Yes. Okay. That's not love. But I think, talking about, like, how our heart has room to, like, grow, that it's okay, right? Like, where you make a new friend at school, like, that's okay. Like, I like the Girl Scout motto, or at least they did when I was a kid. It was like, make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other's gold, right? Like, but just being like that, there's room, right? So I think, we can talk about that, and that it is hard, and that, as a step parent, we wouldn't want them to have to choose between two people. Like, that they, like, I think as a parent or step parent, like, you would never make them choose. And as a parent, like, look, your kid can be loved by other people, and that actually benefits them in life, right? There is room for you. You will never be replaced. Your mom, your dad, you will never be replaced. Kids do not forget who their mom and dad are. They know who you are. You don't have to remind them. They know, and they love you, even imperfect. They love us. Thank goodness. Right? Like, I'm like, sometimes my 3-year-old, I'm like, I haven't gotten any of the things I want done. And he's like, I love you, mommy. You're the best mommy ever. And I'm like, I am so glad somebody feels that way. I don't say that, but, like, in my head, I'm like, I am not feeling that way today, but I'm like, I'm just going to let myself sit with that feeling of, like, I am the best mommy in the whole world.
That's right.
I can handle that. Like, they love that. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I think that it comes from a place of fear. Right. And we really don't want our kids reacting in fear. And I get that they're obviously complex families and they're complex situations, but I think kids figure it out. Like, that's the cool part, is, like, eventually, sometimes it takes a while, like 10, 15, 20 years. But kids eventually, they figure out who is what and who does what they say they're going to do and how things are going to go. And so we don't have to point it out to them. I think sometimes parents might be like, upset with getting divorced or the process or whatever, and they're trying to point out the faults to about the other parent to the kid or the new partner or whatever. And the thing is that you don't need to. Who people
Mhm.
are, they're going to show. So like, trust the process of that, of like, you don't have to show that. Obviously, if you're feeling like your kid's in danger, like threatened or something like that, like
Right.
totally different circumstance. But we're just talking about typical family blending, which is hard. And it is hard, maybe for even the partner to see their ex getting remarried to somebody else. And that might be the final thing for them. Like they
Yeah.
might have thought like, oh, I'm going to do these things or it's going to get better, or they will finally see whatever. And then they see that they are marrying somebody else. And that might cause hard feelings for them too.
Mhm. Absolutely. And it's important for us to remember too that, you may have a step kid that is just going to be a hard kid for you. And that's okay. I mean, that's so common. If you have all of your step kids loving you, God bless you, you've done something right to the beginning. But there are some kids that are just going to not welcome you in. And even if you can get to the point where you can all be cordial in the same room, that may be a major step for your family. Every family is going to be different. Some of them will take those baby steps like, look, we can tolerate each other in the same room and be cordial, be civil. Others are going to have that loving Hallmark movie blended moment. But the
Sure.
majority of blended families, there's somewhere in the middle of all of that chaos. But I know of a number of families who look, it's like, my stepdaughter hated me when I started in the family. She still hates me, and it is what it is. She resents me. There's just a lot of, or she just was afraid to let me in. And that's another part of it too, is, people who were supposed to stay together and who were supposed to love me and raise me, and they fell apart. They didn't love me enough to stay together. Of course, this is a child's perspective,
Yes.
and one left. So how do I trust that you're going to stay? Because that one left, and if the mom or the dad has dated multiple people, the child gets attached and then they're gone, and then we're attached and then we're gone. It's like, well, how do I trust anybody? How do I trust you as my step parent that you're going to stay? Because nobody seems to be staying. So there's so many onion layers that we could peel apart with all of this. It's so hard.
Do you have any advice? I'm not sure that you ever would see people in this part, but maybe you would. But like, parents will ask me sometimes like, okay, so I've been dating this person for this long. When can I introduce them to my kids? Because I do think what you just said about the like attaching and then that relationship ending. And I mean, not that we can predict the future, but like that is hard on kids because they do connect sometimes. I mean, not always, but then that person leaves, the relationship didn't work out, which absolutely understand, like that is going to happen. But then it's like, okay, how are we thoughtful about our kids in that process? Do you have any thoughts about that?
If your kids are very little, be careful, like take it very slowly, because younger kids will attach more quickly. So, just making sure that you are in a stable relationship to begin with, and not just, oh, we've been dating a couple of months, because let's face it, in this world, a couple of months, can flip on a dime. So the longer you've been dating and you feel like, okay, this is definitely going in the right direction. It might be play dates at a park. It might be something simple like that. With older kids, some of them are okay with mom and dad dating. Others think it's just ick, and they want no part of they want no part of your love life. They don't even want to think about it. So please don't bring another person around either. So it really depends on the age, the maturity of the kids, how long you've been together with your partner, and just ease in very slowly. That's if you rush it, it's just going to make a hot mess for your kids if things do break up. I mean, there's no guarantees. We know the stats already. So, they say that 50% of first marriages end in divorce, about 70% of second marriages with kids end in divorce. 73% of those people recouple again. And so there's so much coming and going. Yes. So the longer you have that relationship before you bring the kids in, it's a better bet on things working out.
Yeah. Well, and I think, my perspective would be there's no rush.
Oh,
right? Like, I think if this is the right person for you, I mean, it's like, obviously everybody has different circumstances and situations, but it's like, slow, is best, right? And I think,
Absolutely.
like thinking about ideally, like being able to like navigate conflict with that other person. Like, because if you're bringing somebody into a family that already has kids, whether they have kids too or not, you are going, I mean, there's going to be conflict. Like, conflict just happens. And so, like, being able to navigate conflicts together, like, that's big. Like, maybe it's also like looking about, like, what would you need to know in order to know, like, or what would you need to see or experience with that other person to know that, like, this is going to be something that sticks together, that you're going to keep moving forward in a positive direction. And I think it's hard to know. It is so hard. And so when parents ask me that question, I'm like, look, I wish there was like a simple answer to this, but there's so many factors that are going on. And it's also like, what's the agenda or the objective here? Like, is there something like, do you need to get married quickly? Right? Like, if you do, that's probably not great with kids because they want the time to like get to know that person and grow into that relationship. And I think sometimes kids surprise us too, though. Sometimes they're really negative, but then they meet the other person and they fall in love too.
Yeah.
And so then that can be so lovely. But then it's also like thinking about like, if this wasn't to last, how would that impact my kids? And so, I mean, there's just a lot of things to consider before bringing somebody new into their life. And it certainly should not be, I don't like it when parents do it under the guise of like, oh, this is just my friend. Right? Like, I think we should be honest because kids also like they're looking at us to create trust and safety. And so if we're bringing somebody around, we know we're dating them and we're trying to like just introduce them to this person. I think it's better if we are able to be honest and like in a place where our kids are ready. What do you think about
Yes.
that?
Oh, spot on. Absolutely spot on. Yet when you guys, because kids, they're smart, we don't give them enough credit and they'll read more into the relationship past, oh, this is just dad's friend or this is just mom's friend.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, don't play games. You can say this is someone important to me. And, we're just kind of experimenting to see, if the relationship is going to be there. But yeah, playing those games then your kids lose trust in you. They don't want, they'll resent that other person because it started with a lie. It's just setting everybody up for a bad domino effect.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And it's hard, and not blaming anybody for like words that have been said, but I think it is so hard, but so important to just be honest with our kids about where things are. I mean, and if we're not ready to talk about something, they notice a shift in our behavior because we are dating somebody and they haven't met, they may be like, you're acting weird. And you could say, like, I have started talking to somebody and they're going to be curious and want to know who it is. And you can say like, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. Or, like, I'll let you know when I think this might be something, or like, they're going to have questions because they haven't done this either, right? They don't know what the process is to having a parent start dating. Because like normally if you have like a nuclear family and then that family, ends in divorce, these kids haven't done it before either, just like you haven't done it. And so it's clumsy. And I think we can take time to say like, I'm not sure how to talk about this yet. Like, let me think about that. And can I get back to you tonight or tomorrow or whenever? And obviously having somebody like Amy would be an amazing resource to be like, hey, Amy, help me out. I need help, please.
I'm here for it.
Yes, for sure. Okay. So let's go back to discipline, because I think, this is something that I hear blended families talk about a lot, is the different discipline styles. And like we said earlier, like my husband and I grew up in totally different discipline styles. We're raising 4 kids. 3 are biological kids. 1 is a bonus kid that I got from my husband's previous marriage. So I'm doing this blended thing along with you guys. And I got the benefit for me was I met him when he was very small. He was 1 year old. So like he doesn't really know any different. He doesn't remember a time before I existed, which I am thankful for. But I know that, we co-parent really well with his previous wife, and we're navigating through hard parenting stuff together. But thinking about like, I know even within our homes, there's different discipline style, right, between those 2 homes, and also just like us coming at it from different angles. And so how do you how can we create like a new routine, or like, how do we navigate this part, right? Of like, okay, so like I might be a more collaborative parent. I think that that's where I put myself, of like, I want to work with my kids through problems, and ultimately I get to make decisions, but I want them on board. But then, sometimes parents might also be helicopter parents, trying to protect everything, right? Keep our kids from interacting with anything, but like that might not jive well with me. Or they might be authoritarian and putting lots of rules, and I'm like, that doesn't seem to work with me either. So like, how do we navigate through that part? And I think the thing that even in nuclear families that parents can feel is like being undermined or overruled is something too. So I just gave you a ton of thoughts, but basically, if we have different parenting styles, how can we become more unified and also avoid this pitfall of being undermined or overruled?
Yeah, so important. So when I work with couples, I always work on that family foundation first. They're building a shared parenting approach in that, we tear apart and put together a list of family values. These are the values. These are the words that are important to you. These are the words that are important to me. So why are they important? Like, we do a deep dive into family vision, family values, and family goals.
Okay.
We discipline from there backwards. So, why are we disciplining this kid about this thing? Well, because it matches our family value of respect, or it matches truth and honesty. So it's really, there's many roads can come to the same spot. We need to figure out what that spot is and then come at them finding common ground. And, I had one couple, she was more stringent about routines, and he was very like, hey, whatever happens, happens. It made her crazy. The unpredictability of it all was so hard on her, and he didn't understand why she was wound up all the time. So when we figured that out, we talked about their parenting styles and stuff, and then we figured out, well, what's the common ground? Like, what are we really trying to get to? And then we can kind of give and take with our partners, what works, what doesn't. My husband and I were very different people. I'm all about the emotion and the, locking into feelings and all of that. Like, I really want to understand where the kids are coming from. He's very much an engineer brain. X plus Y equals Z. So this is where we need to be, and this is how it's going to be, and blah, blah, blah. So I needed to learn to be more like him, and he needed to learn to be more like me. So we you have to find that meeting in the middle. How are we going to do this? Now with blendeds, if you have, especially it's easier with littles, like you started when he was 1. So it was easy to kind of step into that and build that together, because he was little and you hadn't really, built a whole discipline at 1, there's not as much discipline as 13 for sure. So when you have older kids though, there are times where we go back to the vision, the values, and the goals. What behavior is a child demonstrating? Why? What value is this in conflict with? What family value have we established as a couple that we really want to make sure we guide our children to? How do we redirect this kid? But there will be times where the step parent may have to take a step back and let mom or dad do what they do, because especially if you come in later, because these kids already know their parent. And then as the step parent, you can kind of be the background and support mom or dad in that role as the parental guidance. And you're just there backing them up, and making sure that we're staying with the same family values. Other times it's kind of good. And this will be something some of my birth parents have pushed back on me or pushed back at me on this one, but I'll sometimes say to them, what if you just took a step back and listened to your partner, because they have an outside picture of what's going on. They're not emotionally tied into this mess. They can look at it from the outside in and maybe see a different perspective. Would you feel comfortable listening to that perspective and just seeing, because none of us are great parents from the get-go. We're all learning as we go, all the way through. We're learning as we go. So, if having that outside set of eyes going like, I get it that this is why you see it that way, but here's what I'm seeing just looking in from the outside. Sometimes that helps too. It can be hard to let somebody else have an opinion of how you're parenting your kid. But as a couple, we need to figure that out and find, I always go with the vision, values, goals, common ground. what's the smallest amount of common ground we can start with as a couple, and then we build from there out.
So is that something you share with your kids, or is that something that is just for the adults?
Which part?
Values.
The vision, values, and goals. When I work with my couples, we make sure that's very well hammered out first. This is the vision that we're shooting for. These are the family values. These are the goals. I have them, depending on the ages of the kids. If they're littles, it's not going to make sense. If they're older, I usually have them take that list of 5 and sit down with the family and go like, so we're working with this lady and she, this is what she does. And so we kind of came up with these kind of like our family guidelines, because kids are like, family values, what does that even mean? But if you're like, these are going to be like, this is kind of how we're going to make sure that our family works together as a unit. And then listen, I always tell my parents though, throw the word out there and ask the kids, what does this word mean to you? Because sometimes you'll be surprised to hear what their version of that word means. And sometimes you'll incorporate some of that into how we define as a family respect, or how we define as a family compassion. So throwing the words out there for the older kids and being like, what do you even, like, when you hear that word, what do you think of? And this could be a super casual, have pizza at the dinner table and just kind of throw this stuff out there. I never make it super formal, because then the kids are like, are we in trouble? Or they'll push back like, this is just a dumb conversation. But if you keep it casual, I do want the kids to have some input into that, because they're living in this. So, your version of respect might be different from what we grew up with respect. Can we find some middle ground that makes sense for our new family unit? Helps tremendously, because kids will buy in what they've had a voice in.
Yes.
So that helps.
Yeah, that's way easier. So I think we've kind of talked about this, but I think there's like a feeling of like step parent should, and I'm putting that in quotation marks, like do certain things or not do certain things. Do you find that that is true, that like there's this list of should or should not, or is it really just based on every family figuring out kind of like what works for that family unit?
I recommend you figure that out for your unit. What you'll hear though is the outside parent telling the step parent what they should or shouldn't be doing through their partner. So just like, that's going to filter through sometimes. But I think every couple needs to figure that out for themselves, depending on how the kids are coming and going, and how we worked out our discipline plan, and how we've done all these other things. Some parents will step right in. Other step parents will be kind of like, I'm here as a support system for everybody, but I'm only going to get involved in these things and not those things. So I think every family is generic as it phrases it is. Everyone's got to figure it out for themselves, because each dynamic is so different. Like your step family is different from all of the ones I've worked with. Like everyone, and that's the part I love about it, is getting to know your unique family, versus the others I've worked with. It's so much fun.
Yes. Yeah. There's so many nuances for sure. Okay. So when we think about, like, I'm thinking about, like, we were talking about the kids and the dynamics of like, some kids will jump right in and be welcoming, others will not. So let's talk about the will not set, right? Okay. And sometimes we feel like as that step parent, we are kind of walking on eggshells around these kids. Like we don't want to upset them. We don't want them to be mad at us. Like we already feel like they're upset with us, or we're not sure where our place is, right? Because we're probably in the beginning process of blending this, or like we haven't felt like we've blended or we've really connected with that kid. What advice do you have on connecting or like allowing kids to speak freely without, causing hurt feelings? Maybe, I don't know. Like, how do we incorporate this part so that everybody can feel like comfortable in the house?
Yeah. There needs to be an overall rule of respect for everybody. Even if you're angry, upset, whatever, we get it. We're happy to listen to that. But at the same point in time, you may not be disrespectful. You may not, no name calling. Don't just be a brat to be a brat kind of thing. Like you've got to bring something to the table to, as part of the family. Of course, digging in though to those, acknowledging the feelings. And, we talked about at the beginning how there's so much change and change is hard. And it's good to sit down with the kids and talk about those changes. One of my families, and oh my gosh, I got to work with them last year. I'm so excited. They're doing really well. I just adore these two. But they sat down, they were in the engaged planning the wedding stage, and we were talking about planning the wedding and that. And they sat down with the kids and created what we called a change chart. What are you worried about that's going to be different when we get married or when we all move in together? What are the things that are sitting? And it could be something small. It could be something big. Like who's sleeping in rooms together? Or do I get a room by myself like I've always had? What's the morning routine going to look like? It was funny. The one family we worked with, the stepson was having a real issue when everybody combined into one home. And we figured it out. Of course, the kitchen got rearranged to fit more people, more dishes and all the things. And he's like, nothing feels like my house anymore. It took us a while to figure out what was the change that shoved him over the edge. It was the fact that when he went in to go and get his bowl of cereal, he couldn't find the flipping bowls because people get moving things around. So it's those little things that might set them off. It could be a big thing. So acknowledge those feelings. We know this is going to be hard. We want you to talk to us about this stuff. It's okay to be mad, but we have to be mad respectfully, and have the right way of expressing those things. For the adults, it's easy to get defensive because you're like, why are you making this so difficult? I'm so happy I have this new partner and we're this new adventure and all of that. And the kids are pushing back and you're like, why are my kids being such brat? Why are they making this so hard when this is really good for them? Well, they don't feel it's good for them. So we as the adults need to remember that we have our feelings, but our kids have these feelings and they could be in clash. They could be in conflict and we have to figure that all out. So being open to listening without the defensive armor on us and just being willing to listen, even if it's going to be a hard thing that you hear, letting the kids voice that carefully, and appropriately is super important. And remembering too, that your family is going through growing pains. Just like remember when you were kids and our shins were growing and our legs hurt and we were like, why does this feel so icky? So, it's kind of the same thing. Your family's going through those growing pains and it's going to take some time to figure everything out. So being patient. I was just listening to a podcast with Dr. Becky Kennedy. I'm sure you probably, she was on with Jefferson Fisher. I love his book. About communication, the next conversation. If you haven't read it, it's a good one. It's a massive read. But she said in this podcast, kids need support more than solutions. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a key phrase that I think every family needs to hear. Sometimes they don't want us to solve the problem. They just need to hear it, be heard and know that you're hearing them. My last is a phrase I always use all the time is space and grace. Make sure that you're giving everyone breathing space and grace and forgiveness as everyone's making that adjustment because it's big. There's a lot of big, a lot of little, and it's all going to feel funny. So giving everyone that time to kind of figure it out together is huge. Yeah.
It's so hard. I mean, and also so beautiful. Like it can be so great. And also, I mean, it's almost like, like the challenge is kind of expected. Change can be hard regardless of what the change is happening in our life. But when everybody's going through a change all at once, it's a lot.
Yes.
Yes, so much. And then, I mean, we haven't even notated like what it's like to bring in new siblings, like the parents get married and then have a kid, right? Like that throws things off, right? So I think, I mean, sometimes in a great way, like it's like such a exciting endeavor, but I think sometimes I notice that kids can go back to some of these feelings that we've talked about with the change with like new siblings too. And blending is like you're continually doing it. Like I don't think there's a part where it's like, okay, we did it.
Yes.
We blended enough, right? Like, but it's that it's like we're just because different stages, different ages, different challenges that people are going through, right?
Mhm.
And so it is a process that keeps going. What else do you think would you like for parents to know or take away from this conversation?
Mhm. I'm going to bring in Ron Deal. I love his Smart Step Family approach to everything, and he talks about how blending a family it's like using a slow cooker versus an Instapot. And
Mm,
in the Instapot, you force everything to blend,
yeah.
and with the slow cooker, which is the approach blended families have to have, think about like the spices and the veggies, everything's kind of softening and then opening themselves up to absorb the other feelings and things like that. Like that is
Yeah.
such a beautiful metaphor for step families is take it slow, low heat, and just kind of slowly let everybody relax into their position and eventually, have those moments. Um, Creating that feeling of us, of a family together, that united parenting approach means it's also united rules for the family too, and
Mhm.
family values and things like that. And then you turn around and you say, in our family, it's not his family, it's not her family, it's our
Mhm.
family together. It's
Mhm.
not your way or my way, it's our way of doing things. In this
Mhm.
new blended family that we have, this is
Yeah.
how we're going to handle these problems, or this is the way we're going to handle these situations. Showing up for each other in little ways and big ways too. If you've got a kiddo that plays sports or is in music or something, and there's a game to go to or a concert to go to or whatever, showing up as a family is huge because we're starting to make those connections with each other by supporting each other and showing up for each other in little ways and big ways. And it doesn't even have to be something like, it could just be something little, like showing a kindness to each other. If
Mhm.
one step kid falls off the bike and the other one, helps them get back to the house and put Band-Aids on. It's those little blended things, it's those
Mhm.
little kindness moments that
Mhm.
kind of like small investments into the big savings account. The last thing I would say is watching your time, I call it pockets of time, making sure that the birth parent has one-to-one time with their birth children, because that then reassures the birth children, like, I still have my connection, even though I have to share a mom or share a dad, I'm still an important person. Even though these
Mhm.
shiny new kids have shown up, I'm still important. So that one-to-one time is super important. And I always recommend that step parents make a verbal show of supporting that. Like, I think it would be great if you and your dad went out and had ice cream this weekend.
Mhm.
Let's make sure that
Mhm.
that happens so you guys have some time together. Things like that are really helpful. So the one-to-one time, the couple time, making sure you guys keep your relationship healthy. And I go with my couples. I do that a lot. Like, what is this going to look like? How are we going to do this? I make
Mhm.
them put it in the calendar, because otherwise, as you know, when you have multiple kids, it's going to get lost and run
Yeah.
over. So
Yeah.
and forgotten. So it's one-to-one time, it's that couple time, and then of course it's that blended family. It's the family unit time, and building those experiences where you're building bonds. Shared experiences equal better, stronger bonds within the family. And it doesn't have to be major things. It might be everybody goes on a walk. Yeah, just doing little things together as a family will build those bonds that makes
Mhm.
it more of a we're a family now
Yes.
experience for
Yes,
everyone.
I love that perspective because I think it's important to signify the change, right?
Yes.
From how things were to how things are, and that we're in this together.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yes. Oh, Amy, thank you so much. This has been such a lovely conversation. I know that
Thank
this can be
you.
so challenging for families, and I'm so glad that you're out there doing this hard work, but also like giving us tidbits of advice so that we can do this in our homes too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun to chat with you, Bryce.
Yes. Thanks again, Amy. What amazing advice that you're giving. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. I hope that you've gained some insightful tips or tricks to navigating this blending of families because let's be honest, it can be very challenging. And we're so glad that we have people like Amy out there to help us do this. With that, I will say thank you so much for your time today. Please like and subscribe to our show. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And before you peace out,
If you would be so kind to subscribe to our show, we would greatly appreciate it. And share this with anybody you know that is blending a family or recently divorced to help them know what the plan needs to be going forward if they choose to blend a family. With that, have a wonderful day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.